Palestinian civilians to immediately leave Gaza before it turns it into rubble, though many of those Palestinians saying leave to where? Saying there's nowhere they can safely go. Also, Israel is beginning a naval bombardment of Gaza while it conducts a massive airstrike campaign. Israeli tanks have reportedly been moved to the border and are reportedly considering destroying Gaza's water supply as well as cutting it off from Egypt so supplies can't come in. Also, at least 600 Israelis were killed in yesterday's attack. That number, though, expected to grow into the thousands. Over 2,000 Israelis have been injured in this, as at least 307 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's attacks with another 2,200 injured. There are also reports of several Americans dead and dozens have reportedly been taken hostage. You also have local media reporting that the amount of death in the cities being liberated from Hamas is unbearable, with absolutely horrifying stories coming out of the country. Things like 20 police officers were reportedly massacred at a police station by Hamas. At least a dozen people were killed at a nature party. And Hamas also surrounded a rave in the desert where they began massacring at least 250 people. And at that rave, Hamas kidnapped, raped, and then murdered a 22-year-old German peace activist before parading her body around through the streets. Follow to stay in the loop. Israel is at war, with Hamas reportedly launching a massive sneak attack on Israel that's invaded the country via land, air, and sea. And they've reportedly captured and are occupying several cities in Israel and have been killing civilians in those cities. With Israel saying at least 100 Israelis have been killed so far and at least 1,000 are injured, with those numbers expected to grow. There have also been reports that at least 100 Israelis have been kidnapped and are being held as hostages, some of which have allegedly been brought back to Gaza, with Hamas reportedly threatening to execute them. And this, as reports say, that more than 5,000 rockets have been fired at Israel. Hamas also claimed it captured senior Israeli officials, including a former general, and all of this has been described as a very sophisticated attack. And notably, the timing of all this is that we're looking at the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, with Israel promising a biblical response and adding that Hamas has opened the gates to hell. So follow to stay in the loop. Israel is at...
Do you know anything about that? What can you report at this stage? All right. Yumna, please take cover. If you are in a position to do so safely, you can explain to us what we're happening. If you are not in a position to do so safely,
Yes.
then please get to safety.
No, it's okay. This is a missile attack on Palestine Tower, right in the middle of Gaza City.
Do you know anything about that? What can you report at this stage?
After years of simmering tensions, the conflict between Israel and Hamas has erupted into an open warfare after a surprise attack over the weekend. We are looking right now at live pictures that show that the Gaza City skyline, where you can still see the smoke from some kind of explosion. Now, this has happened in the last 20 minutes. It's even as the Israeli army says it has regained control of communities around the Gaza Strip after Palestinian terrorists crossed the Gaza border early Saturday. But they acknowledge that the fighting is still happening now. Hamas used explosives, paragliders, motorbikes, and boats to get through a barrier and infiltrate around 24 border towns and military bases. The attackers fired indiscriminately at Israeli men, women, and children and took more than 100 people, civilians and soldiers, back to Gaza as hostages. About 1,200 people have died on both sides in the last 3 days.
The attackers, the terrorists in this case, attacked as well an all-night music festival. This is where Israeli rescuers say they found at least 260 people dead, that one location. And this morning, Israel's defense minister ordered a total blockade of Gaza in response to all of this, stopping supplies of food and fuel and water and electricity. The Biden administration is also now moving an aircraft carrier and other military assets into the Middle East in a show of support for Israel, as a White House official confirms that Americans are among the dead.
After years of...
Yes. This is just an airstrike now that you've heard. It seems that it's very close here from the area of where we are. We're at El Yarmouk neighborhood. I'm taking cover. I won't be in front of the camera. Yes, the bombardment is it's not exactly where we are, but it's very close of where we are. You can see this is a very densely populated neighborhood. This mosque here just in front of you was bombarded at 12 a.m. Local time, Gaza, last night. This is the fourth mosque to be bombarded in the Gaza Strip. And also, I'm going to ask the camera to go around and show you the homes that are adjacent to this mosque, how they have been severely destroyed with the targeting of the mosque.
A complete siege has been ordered on Gaza as Israel is planning a major military invasion within 48 hours and plans to remove Hamas from power after the Jewish state suffers its worst day in history. The newly sparked clashes in Israel and Palestine continue to shatter lives, with over 1,000 people killed, more than 2,200 injured, and the death toll continuing to rise. The Israeli military say this is their 9/11. The U.S. confirmed they are sending multiple Navy ships and will move military aircrafts, including fighter jets, closer to Israel. Israel have continued to relentlessly pound the Gaza Strip in the early hours of this morning, with airstrikes and artillery hitting more than 1,000 targets belonging to Hamas overnight. A complete siege has been ordered on
So if you were wondering, why did Hamas attack Israel today? I will explain it in like the shortest, best way I can. And this was like my major in college and stuff. So if you were wondering.
And we're now getting new video that shows Hamas appearing to take Israelis captive. This video has been geolocated by CNN, but we want to warn you that it is disturbing. It's war. This is in Gaza. You can see a barefoot woman pulled from the trunk of a Jeep by a gunman and then forced into the back seat of a car. Her face is bleeding and her wrists appear to be cable-tied behind her back. The Jeep is also appearing to have an Israeli Defense Force license plate, suggesting that it might have been stolen and brought into Gaza. And we're now getting new video that shows Hamas appearing to take Israelis captive. This video has been geolocated by CNN.
9 Americans have been killed, and other U.S. citizens are missing in Israel following Saturday's unprecedented Hamas attack that has killed 700 Israelis and wounded many more, according to U.S. officials. The Americans killed in the conflict have yet to be identified by officials in the United States. Stay with us for more updates. 9 Americans have been...
And what you saw here was, for example, a music festival going on in the desert on the Israeli side. As reported by those who were there at 6:30 in the morning, they heard bombings and then suddenly they were attacked by militants, Gazan militants. And what you are looking at here is a man and a woman being taken hostage by Gazan militants. Whereabouts unknown, but the family of these people have said that they want CNN to show these images, even though they are disturbing, because they hope that it will help get this woman and man released out of Gaza, which is where seemingly they are being held at the moment. But it just speaks to and what you saw here.
Seems like somebody didn't media train Kylie Jenner.
The rapidly intensifying war between Israel and Palestinian militants roared into a second day today, with the Israeli Security Cabinet formally declaring war. The death toll is now more than 1,000, with thousands more injured on both sides. Tonight, Israeli soldiers are still battling Hamas fighters near Israel's southern border after Saturday's surprise attack from Gaza. Israeli officials say dozens of Israelis and several Americans have been kidnapped and held hostage, a scene senior Hamas official claims the total is more than 100. CBS's Holly Williams is in Israel.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country is now engaged in a, quote, long and difficult war. Hamas gunmen broke through the barrier that Israel uses to contain Palestinians in Gaza. The militants, designated as terrorists by the US, fired waves of rockets into Israel and arrived by sea and even in paragliders. It was a coordinated assault. Civilians were slaughtered in the towns of southern Israel. And Hamas also took hostages, including women, children and the elderly. Israel's responded by targeting the Gaza Strip with hundreds of airstrikes. But the question is how Israeli intelligence failed to detect the planning for such a massive attack.
The rapidly intensifying war between...
So does the world believe us now?
With one of America's closest allies attacked and now at war. The scenes this morning across Israel were chaotic, unprecedented, and terrifying. The Palestinian militant group Hamas choosing a Jewish holiday to launch an attack on and into Israel. There was the barrage of rockets into Israel, but also incursions by militants. These were the scenes of Hamas fighters storming across the border, marauding through the streets of Israel. Hamas confirming it has taken an unconfirmed number of hostages, soldiers and civilians dragged from the streets. An Israeli official calling today their 9/11. Israel's response so far has been swift, but only just beginning. They've already leveled entire buildings in Gaza, the territory that's home to Hamas. The death toll is at least 200 people on each side and is expected to rise. Our teams are across the region and here in the U.S. We begin with Raf Sanchez on the ground in Israel.
It looks like a scene from Israel's darkest nightmare. A surprise attack beginning with thousands of rockets, followed by
with one of America's...
Okay, if you don't know what's happening.
You've got a World War III issue going on. Hamas launched a surprise attack over the weekend. More than 1,100 people are reported dead. So what is going to happen in the short term? What are people supposed to do in the short term, the innocent civilians on both sides?
So first off, war is now on. There is a war going on. Children are being killed, hostages are being taken, and if Hamas doesn't get what they want, they said they will execute hostages starting today. So we are at the tension point. Israel is a democratic state in the midst of the Middle East, and America wants to keep it that way. So know that Israel has the backing of the full United States. If you looked at a map, Saudi Arabia is right next to all this. They also are scared of Iran, which is Hamas is back. They will side probably with Israel. Now you've got a real Middle Eastern issue with Iran. You've got Lebanon shooting from Hezbollah. You've got a World War III issue going on in the Middle East that starts to spread because of this tiny little area. You've got a World War III issue going on.
Hamas launched a surprise attack over the weekend.
They say they need people that speak good English to try to explain what's going on here. And all I think is, I see the sentence, never again, and I see the question mark, and I don't understand how it can happen. I'm crying in my car because I don't want my kids to see more than they've already seen. I have messages every 10 minutes on another person that I know that's found dead or been kidnapped. Messages about kids that are orphans now. And videos that with kids that's been taken. It's like the Holocaust all over again. It's everywhere in the media. And friends are hiding in the bushes, asking and begging for help, and nobody can come and help them. And it's all over the media. Please. I don't know how to even start to explain what's going on here. It's a massacre. stand with us, stand with Israel. These things should never happen. Never again. They said never again. They say they need people.
Okay, if you don't know what's happening in Palestine right now, I'll try to explain it in simple terms, because what's happening right now never happened in modern history. Okay. Palestine is basically, almost all of it is dominated by Israel. So every day they take more and more land, obviously, and then what's left for Palestine is a couple of dots on the map, and then they got Gaza Strip. Small space, and it's all blocked. There's a huge blockade all over it, so whoever's in Gaza, they're stuck there. They can't go out. Now the blockade is illegal, occupation is illegal, illegal settlements, this is all illegal according to the UN. Now the situation between Israel and Gaza, they do and what they're good at, because they have a lot of obviously money and support from the US, is that they keep sending rockets every few months. Gaza sends rockets back, and that's how it is. And all of it is dominated by Israel because they have everything, right? They have the money, they have the equipment, the technology. But today, for the first time, Gaza launched rockets. And not only that, you see people, Palestinians from inside of Gaza, outside of Gaza. This is supposed to be a blockade. People inside of Gaza, they're like, if the entire world is watching and not doing anything, we're going to take it in our own hands. And the Palestinians woke up and they're like, wait, what? I'm used to being shot at. How is this? This is like a turn we've never seen before. And this is why everybody's anxious. Like, what's going to happen? What is Israel going to do right now? Is it going to basically demolish? Like, we don't know. So this is basically what's happening. Just pray for the best. Okay, if you don't know what's happening in Palestine right now, I'll try to explain it in simple terms, because what's happening right now never happened in modern history.
You've got a World War III issue going on.
Hamas launched a surprise attack over the weekend. More than 1,100 people are reported dead. So what is going to happen in the short term? What are people supposed to do in the short term, the innocent civilians on both sides?
So first off, war is now on. There is a war going on. Children are being killed, hostages are being taken, and if Hamas doesn't get what they want, they said they will execute hostages starting today. So we are at the tension point. Israel is a democratic state in the midst of the Middle East, and America wants to keep it that way. So know that Israel has the backing of the full United States. If you looked at a map, Saudi Arabia is right next to all this. They also are scared of Iran, which is Hamas is back. They will side probably with Israel. Now you've got a real Middle Eastern issue with Iran. You've got Lebanon shooting from Hezbollah. You've got a World War III issue going on in the Middle East that starts to spread because of this tiny little area. You've got a World War III issue going on.
Hamas launched a surprise attack over the weekend. More than 1,100 people are reported dead. So what is going to happen in the short term? What are people supposed to do in the short term, the innocent civilians on both sides?
So first off, war is now on. There is a war going on. Children are being killed, hostages are being taken, and if Hamas doesn't get what they want, they said they will execute hostages starting today. So we are at the tension point. Israel is a democratic state in the midst of the Middle East, and America wants to keep it that way. So know that Israel has the backing of the full United States. If you looked at a map, Saudi Arabia is right next to all this. They also are scared of Iran, which is Hamas is back. They will side probably with Israel. Now you've got a real Middle Eastern issue with Iran. You've got Lebanon shooting from Hezbollah. You've got a World War III issue going on in the Middle East that starts to spread because of this tiny little area. You've got a World War III issue going on.
Hamas.
I wish I could say I was shocked to find out that Israel's techno-dystopia is testing out remote-controlled guns with AI tracking systems on civilians in the West Bank. They've just installed one in Haida refugee camp pointing directly at the entrance to the Palestinian neighborhood. This same spot where an Israeli sniper shot dead a 13-year-old boy and regularly fires at kids. I guess Israel's massive wall, armored military jeeps, snipers, foot soldiers, and 6 watchtowers surrounding the area just wasn't enough defense against the scary Palestinian kids with rocks.
First of all, explain to us what Gaza life is like when it's not in active conflict with Israel.
So, Alex, it's a great question. It's an important question to consider tonight because what happened in Israel was horrific, deadly, heartbreaking. And the Israeli government is obviously going to retaliate, as you mentioned there. There have already been retaliatory airstrikes, but there's talk of escalation, of a ground invasion, of, exacting a price. And you have to understand, when we talk about Gaza in the West, for a lot of people, it's very easy to conflate Hamas, which is a militant group that carries out acts of vicious terror, as they did this weekend, with Gaza, which is a place that contains 2.2 million people, Alex, half of them children. Half of the 2.2 million people are children, and it's one of the most densely populated places on planet Earth. You've got 2.2 million people crowded into 141 square miles. So they automatically become the victims of Israeli airstrikes because it's so crowded, because it's so densely populated. And it's basically like living, Alex, in an open-air prison. And those aren't my words. Those are the words of the former head of Israeli intelligence just a few months ago, Tamir Pardo. He said, "We're treating Gaza like an open-air prison." So that is the context. It is so important for us to remember when we talk about Gaza as some kind of, strange, faraway place, people shouting with guns. It's actually a real place with real people, families, and they're living in horrific conditions, Alex. 59% of Gazans live in poverty, 63% food insecure, 70% of young people unemployed, 90% of Gazans have no access to clean drinking water. The UN Secretary General called it hell on earth. How much more hellish is it going to get in the coming days?
First of all, explain to us what Gaza life is.
As a former CIA officer and as an American Jew, I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation in Israel and what happened there over the past day or two. First, I want to talk about what Gaza is. Gaza is an area located in the southwestern part of Israel. It was controlled by Egypt until 1967 when Israel took it over. Israel has since withdrawn from that area in about 2005-ish, and Hamas has taken it over. However, there is a sea blockade around that area, so it's really difficult to get goods and services into there. As a result, the Palestinians who live there have had to turn to other ways to get the things that they need, like healthcare, electricity. That's where Hamas has stepped in, and Hamas is sort of this ultra-nationalist group. I view them as a terrorist organization that is controlled by Iran and is funded by Iran. And the next piece of the puzzle is Israel. At CIA, I did work with Israel. I have met with members of Mossad, Israel's CIA, and members of Shin Bet, which is Israel's FBI. Their president right now is a guy named Benjamin or Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the leader. However, he's highly controversial. Back in March, he basically tried to change the law so that a prime minister couldn't be removed unless they were ill or mentally incapacitated. This really upset Israelis. He is also ultra-nationalist and ultra-religious, which doesn't jive with a lot of the people in Israel. And as a result, a lot of people resigned from the military reserves. So the day that this happened, this was a day called Simchat Torah for Jews, which is really celebrating the joy of the Torah, the finishing of the reading of the year. So this actually did happen on a Jewish holiday. So far, Hamas has said that they are upset that ultra-nationalist Jews went to the Al-Aqsa Mosque that they view as very holy, but Jews also view it as very holy, and that's why they're doing this, although I definitely do not think that was the reason. I am very surprised by this. Look, they have Israel has really one of the best intelligence collection services in the world. They have sources inside the West Bank. They have Palestinian sources, and they have some of the best signals capabilities in the world. And so, yes, this is surprising. It looks like Hamas penetrated about 5 or 6 points within the security border that Israel has with Gaza, and I think that that's highly problematic. Also, they got off the same amount of missiles in just a period of hours that they were able to do in a long period of days back in 2021. So clearly their capabilities have been much improved. And also, again, they are funded by Iran. So the question that a lot of people have been asking was, this whole $6 billion situation that we paid for Iran to use for humanitarian reasons to get some of our hostages back. Look, I'm not cool with paying ransoms. I've never been cool with paying ransoms. And I'm going to be very honest. I didn't like Obama's policy towards Iran, and I'm not the biggest fan of Biden's policy towards Iran. Al-Qaeda's #1 now, who replaced everyone that's since been killed, is hanging out in Iran. So I tend to take a tougher thing towards Iran. I don't think that this $6 billion was used for this exact purpose. The reality is this just happened, and that money is sitting right now in a Qatari bank under U.S. Treasury kind of advisory or control. So yeah, maybe some of it could have been used, but I'm not sure. I don't believe that this is a partisan issue. Israel's under attack. This is going to continue to happen until we get people, both sides to the table to talk. I didn't even send my own kid to Sunday school today because I'm nervous about what retaliation may look like at some of the Jewish places of worship. As a former CIA officer and as an American Jew, I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation in Israel and what happened there over the past day or two. First, I want to talk about what Gaza is. Gaza is an area located in the southwestern part of Israel. It was controlled by Egypt until 1967 when Israel took it over. Israel has since withdrawn from that area in about 2005-ish, and Hamas has taken it over. However, there is a sea blockade around that area, so it's really difficult to get goods and services into there. As a result, the Palestinians who live there have had to turn to other ways to get the things that they need, like healthcare, electricity. That's where Hamas has stepped in, and Hamas is sort of this ultra-nationalist group. I view them as a terrorist organization that is controlled by Iran and is funded by Iran. And the next piece of the puzzle is Israel. At CIA, I did work with Israel. I have met with members of Mossad, Israel's CIA, and members of Shin Bet, which is Israel's FBI. Their president right now is a guy named Benjamin or Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the leader. However, he's highly controversial. Back in March, he basically tried to change the law so that a prime minister couldn't be removed unless they were ill or mentally incapacitated. This really upset Israelis. He is also
so many pro-Israel people that put their head in the sand and don't want to look at some of these atrocities. Some of the videos that you sent me of soldiers shooting at people, not doing anything.
We looked through hundreds of hours of footage that these people gave us, and I didn't see one weapon. And it was literally people with slingshots throwing rocks at tanks. It's just shocking. I mean, it's shocking how many war crimes were committed on camera. And it's just amazing the propaganda that's just told to us about what this is and why they have the right to kill people. All of these things that Israel has done are still documented war crimes and very grievous violations of international law. And we're talking about direct targeting and assassinations by Israeli snipers of disabled people, of children, press, and medics. As you always hear, Palestinians died. No, they were murdered. I mean, just in 2018 alone, there was 35 kids who were killed, 900 shot.
Jesus. So many pro-Israel.
השתוללו בטנטורה היה משהו נורא. טנטורה היה כפר עשיר, בתים יפים.
I am not surprised that the war broke out in Israel today. Because when you understand history and understand that each day of the week was translated into English based off the 7 major planets, it is then when you begin to understand why certain things are happening on particular days. Because each planet harness.
This is what it looks like inside Israel's closed-off ultra-Orthodox communities. Entering their neighborhoods without permission can get you in serious trouble and can potentially be dangerous. If they don't like what you're wearing or what you're doing, they'll tell you off and force you out of their neighborhood. There has even been reports of outsiders getting stoned for not following their strict rules. The Haredi Jews, otherwise known as ultra-Orthodox, see the modern world as sinful. Here, people dress conservatively, study Jewish texts, and avoid all contact with non-Jews and non-Haredi Jews. They also follow a strict dress code, especially for women. Men typically wear black suits paired with white shirts, as well as a kippah or a hat, but their most distinctive feature is their side curls. Haredi women dress modestly, wearing long skirts and long-sleeved blouses. Married women hide their hair with a wig or a scarf. Only about half of Haredi men have jobs. The rest must spend every day in yeshivas, studying the Torah and the Talmud. However, that's the biggest reason Haredi Jews are so controversial in Israel. Everyone in the country not only has to pay high taxes, but also has to do military service for 2 years. Haredi men don't have to work or do military service, and the government pays them to study the Torah. Most Jews say that ultra-Orthodox should pay their own way and serve their country. Many Haredi Jews have restrictions on internet use, and some communities discourage or ban it entirely. If the internet is used, it's often limited to necessary purposes like work or religious reasons, and filters are used to block inappropriate content. There are even kosher phones available in the Haredi market that have internet, video, and camera features disabled. Because they stay far away from technology, many people get their news and information by reading posters and newspapers. The Sabbath, or Shabbat, is one of the most important religious practices for Haredi Jews, observed from Friday's sunset through Saturday's sunset. During Shabbat, they must abstain from 39 categories of activities, including using electricity, driving, writing, and cooking. Marriages are often arranged, and large families are common, with many families having more than 8 children. Haredi Jews live in close-knit communities to help maintain their religious and cultural purity, but there's one neighborhood in Israel that is generally off-limits. Mea Sharim is the most extreme Jewish ultra-Orthodox neighborhood in the world. Here, the people only want to talk, look at, and interact with other Haredi Jews. If you're caught taking videos or happen to offend them in the slightest way, they'll scold you and kick you out. Ultra-Orthodox Jews live in a way that's very different from most people today. Their lives revolve around strict rules, from what they wear and eat to how they spend their time. They live a life separate from the modern world, including technology, and focus heavily on their religious practices. Their choice to live isolated from mainstream society helps them to avoid distractions from their faith and traditions.
Oh, there's a world event happening that I think is being broadly misinterpreted by most people on social media, and I have a latent geography degree that's it's coming out of the sun. I think this is the IDF coming for me. You don't understand that joke yet. We're here to talk about Israel. Put my hair in my teacher bun so you know I mean business. Listen, I know that this is annoying of me to do, so you don't have to tell me I'm not happy with myself either. I'm not going to give you a history lesson. I'm not going to get on a soapbox. We're just going to engage in some current events literacy building together so that we can all better interpret the discourse. That discourse is primarily concerning an active group in Palestine, the Hamas, who are taking active, violent measures against the Israeli government and people. Now, obviously, the problem with that is the Israeli people part, because I think we can all come together, one love, and agree that civilians should not be attacked or taken hostage under any circumstance. Just check that one off, fill that part of the Venn diagram in. However, sort of knee-jerk response, I'm falling to that among the Kylie Jenners and US governments of the world has been, we stand with Israel. And that's the part where I just want us to all skirt, pump the brakes a little bit, because not that we all forget, and I don't know how we could, because Free Palestine was literally just a hashtag. The Israeli government has made something of a personality trait out of genocide. Palestinian people have been historically, for most of human history, systematically displaced from their ancestral, cultural, and religious lands. And that is a huge problem, obviously for the Palestinians. And that is where this retaliation is stemming from now. There are a lot of other cultural, political, religious factors at play in that, but that is the root of the problem. So that is the first thing to keep in mind. Second thing to keep in mind is that this is not a conflict between equal powers, okay? Zara Larson said it in her Instagram story, and I'm saying it again now. This is not China and the US, this is Russia and Ukraine. And the response to this is obviously very different, which is something to be studied. It only need to be because it's not rocket science to figure out why that. All of this is to say that there is a very large step, okay, between terrorism is bad and Israel is good. And a lot of people are sort of, pole vaulting Olympic style over that step. No. It's okay to live in that step somewhere. That's kind of where we should all be, because this isn't good, all right? But this, also really not good. That helped. I am just really ballsed up for how annoying certain types of people are going to be about this. And if I disappear, I'm not saying that it was the Israeli government, but I'm not saying that it was not the Israeli government. So keep that in mind. Have a beautiful Sunday. Sorry for this again. And
breaking news in Tel Aviv. We're bringing fucking KFC to Tel Aviv. No way. casual.
I've been trying to educate myself on Israel and Palestine, and as far as I can make out, it's sort of like coming home from work one day only to find that